We want to welcome you to Tuesdays at 2 with Islander Sewing Systems.
I'm Janet Prey.
I'm Jessica Johnson.
And we're here to teach you all kinds of things about sewing that make it fun, faster, and easier. And if that sounds too good to be true, it's not.
At Islander Sewing Systems, we teach you how to sew a better, like she said, faster, better, in an industry way. We bring the industry methods to home sewing so that you have more professional results. You can do it in a faster manner, and it's more fun.
Yeah, and we use very few pins, if any at all. And we accomplish really exciting things like putting zippers in and pockets on and many more, sleeves, and we don't use any pins. So stay tuned to see lots of exciting tips and techniques.
You'll see that all starting, we do it every Tuesday, but specifically today we are starting our Islander shirt sew-along. So that is pattern 208, which I meant to grab the pattern.
Oh, there's, I can grab that one.
Yeah, grab that one just so we could show if anybody is just tuning in and didn't know that they were in for such excitement. We are doing pattern 208 from Islander Sewing Systems, and it is, you can see the examples behind us. It's a island shirt. Islander was actually, fun fact, Islander is actually the name of Margaret Islander, who started this company, and it has nothing to do with the island shirt, but we'll tie them together here today for you. So here is the pattern. As you can see, it is a loose island lightweight shirt.
Based on a high-end designer resort shirt, similar to a true Hawaiian shirt. And we're not talking about a Walmart Hawaiian shirt. We're talking about an upscale resort, gift shop, or higher-end store resort shirt. But you don't have to spend the money. You can make the same quality for far less. In other words, I posted recently in a newsletter, came across shopping at Macy's, and there was a beautiful Hawaiian shirt by one of my favorite designers, Tommy Bahama, and the price tag was $135. And yet we can, out of beautiful fabric, same high quality fabric, great techniques that we can give you, you could create that shirt for $64 or less, depending on the materials that you choose to make it out of.
So we've been talking about this a lot leading up to the sew-along. So we won't go into great detail because I know most of you are waiting to get in, to get started. But you can buy the pattern on our website, islandersewing.com. We also have a lot of really nice cotton lawn fabrics you can purchase. And if you're interested in participating in the sew-along, which is not too late because all of our videos stay on Facebook and you can come back and watch them at any time. You can purchase a kit on our site as well, which is a discounted price, and you get the fabric, the pattern, the buttons, and the interfacing.
All at about 20% less than you would pay for it if you bought them all separately. So we're trying to give you the best options possible. Just the fabric, just the pattern, or the kit with all the good stuff in it. And then all you have to do is add thread and sew.
So you can follow along with us to make the shirt. You can follow along just to get tips and tricks about sewing because you will pick up a lot of those along the way. And just a couple pieces of housekeeping before we get started. I know last week we talked a lot about Schmetz needles and using the proper needle for your project and how to find what the proper needle is and all that. So if you didn't see that, check last week's video. But we are very happy that along the way of our sew-along, Schmetz has donated giveaways. So make sure you stay tuned for our whole segment to do the giveaways. And we did talk about this sew-along being 3 weeks long, which I scoffed at. And After Janet made...
She's right again.
I'm right again. Nobody listens to Jessica.
We try not to.
It's all right. It just gives me the opportunity to say, I was right again.
We're going to do 4 episodes.
We're going to do 4 just to be able to get in
all the information. I'm going to give you information that's not in the pattern guide as we go along for a couple of different reasons. One, it can't all fit in the pattern guide. I think this one's probably a 28-page guide. Yes. So we get a lot in there, but there's even more, especially since we created this pattern guide. We've made dozens and dozens of these shirts. So as you know, once you've made something so many times, you start to come up with even, some little extra tips and techniques. So we're going to throw those in there as well. And so that's why it's going to take 4 episodes.
And we want to leave room for your questions.
Oh, yep. That's
so along the way, if you have any questions about what Janet's doing or what she's talking about, a technique, if you didn't quite understand it, please feel free to put them in the comments. I will interject when Janet allows to hopefully ask and answer those questions for you.
She means if she can get me to stop talking, she'll get the questions in, and we'll do that.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. So feel free to put in any of your questions with what Janet's doing along the way. If you are watching this video far into the future, say a month or 2 months into the future, please shoot us an email. That will be the best way for us
if
to
you
be
have any
able
questions,
to help
send us
you.
an email.
So watch along for all your tips and tricks for your giveaways. We will be running like a contest of sorts.
For those who finish their project.
For those who finish your shirt. At the end of the 4 weeks, you then have an additional month, so until December 9th, to finish your shirt and post it on our Facebook page. And everybody who does that, everybody who posts a picture of their finished garment will be entered into a giveaway. So we'll have more information on that as we go along, but it's just something to keep in mind because you probably are going to want to participate in that. All right. So is that everything? Should we get started?
I think so, Jess. If you say so, I'm ready.
If I say so. What should I say?
Okay, that's enough.
Oh,
Here.
all right. I guess we're getting started.
Anymore.
All right. So I will just need to turn the camera around when Janet gets over there, and we will get started.
Just say when.
Actually, I'm going to come over here, so then when I need to get closer, I can.
Okay. So welcome, everyone, to the Islander Shirt Sew-Along. Now, this is considered a unisex pattern, but the reason it's a unisex pattern is because it's very boxy and very loose-fitting. So it will not have a bust dart. But it is curved low in the front to help accommodate any excess so that it doesn't hike way up in the front because of the lack of a dart. I also want those who are making it for a woman to take a look at the finished garment measurements. They're on the back of the pattern guide, and compare that to your body measurements to determine how much ease is going to be in there. Because it was originally drafted in a man's shape, it could be that you're going to think that you need a certain size and you're going to need a much smaller size. There's lots of ease in that pattern. So make sure you take a look at that. And if you have any question and you're not sure, then send me an email at islandersewing@comcast.net and tell me your measurements, and I will help you pick the right size to cut. Okay. So there are not a lot of pattern pieces. I think there's about 7 pattern pieces here. So I want to go over the pattern pieces first. So the first pattern piece I want to draw your attention to is for interfacing only. And it's the front interfacing piece number 7. So you're not going to cut this out of fashion fabric, only out of interfacing. So for right now, I'm going to set that aside. And when I do get to the interfacing part, I'm also going to cut 2 collars out of the lightweight interfacing. Now this is specifically for those of you who are using lawn. 100% cotton lawn, you're going to want to only use lightweight interfacing in the top collar as well as the bottom. Now the pattern guide is going to tell you to use a firm one in the top and a light one in the bottom. And if you were using a heavier Pima cotton, or you were using rayon or a woven silk, then you might want to use that heavier weight. You have to be the judge, but in this case, I've made several of these lawns, and the firm is just too firm for this soft, lightweight fabric. So only use the light and stable. If you purchase the kit, it's in there, everything you need, and there'll be extra. If you didn't purchase the kit, you can still purchase the interfacing from us. Again, it's called Light and Stable, and it comes in 1 yard packages, and you won't need the full yard. Okay, so I want you to know that you're going to interface the collar, both pieces, and you're going to interface the hem on the pocket, just the hem. The hem is 1.5 inches. So you just cut a little strip of the same interfacing, 1.5 inches by the width of the pocket. So that will be your interfacing. Now, one other interfacing tip I'm going to give you is, what I generally do is I put interfacing in the hem. So I'm going to put the width of the hem, which is 1 3/8, in the bottom of the front, the bottom of the back, and in the bottom of the sleeve, where the hem is going to be. This will make the hem hang nice, and it'll also make it easier to stitch it in place when it's time to do that and to turn the edge. So that's, we got us to interfacing. Let me just make sure on my notes. We're making view A. This pattern has 2 views. We're making A, which is the more traditional casual shirt with no collar stand, no button up to the neck. It's open. It just says casual but upscale. So view A. If you want to make view B, we will not be covering very many of the techniques in view B. So certainly the guide will take you there. So if B is your desire, just know that's not what we're covering in this particular sew along. And also I want to tell you that not all 100% cotton lawns are created equal. So watch the quality that you're purchasing. Liberty is a very well-known name in cotton lawns. That goes for somewhere between $36 and $45 a yard. This cotton lawn is not Liberty, but it's the same base fabric that we are selling in our kits. So you get the same quality for a far lower price. But recently I purchased some lawns from a wholesaler, and I'm having to send them back because I was also told they were the same substrate as Liberty, and they weren't by any stretch of the imagination. So I quickly got rid of those. But this fabric does not shrink. It's made for the ready-to-wear industry, so you don't have to pre-wash it. If you're concerned at all, cut a 4-inch square out of it, get that hot and soapy, then throw it through the dryer after you rinse it, and you'll see, you'll be able to put it right back and it won't shrink. And the reason we don't want to pre-wash this is because we don't want the sizing gone. The little bit of sizing that's in this fabric will help make it easier to handle when you're sewing. If you've purchased a fabric, or you're going to make this out of a fabric that isn't lawn or that you didn't get from us, and you want to be sure and pre-wash it, but then consider putting a little sizing back in when you press it. I use Best Press, but you can find that at most every fabric store. But some kind of sizing you can find in the grocery store even, just to put a little more body back in the fabric to make it easier to handle.
All right, I do have a question. Brenda wants clarification on interfacing the hems.
Okay.
Is that only if you're using lawn?
No, I do it with the rayon and the silk as well.
Oops, sorry about the video there.
Now, if you are using a quilter's cotton, don't tell me about it, because you know how I feel about quilter's cotton, because it's going to be really, really stiff, and the sleeves are going to stick straight out, and it's going to need a lot of ironing. However, it won't need the interfacing in the hem. So if you happen to be using quilter's cotton, maybe you're doing a sample, or maybe it's got a specific print that you just have to have for a certain occasion. Don't use it in the quilter's cotton because you don't need it. It's pretty heavy in itself. Okay.
Just regular shirting, she's saying.
Just regular shirting, I would, yes. But it's certainly up to you. It's not mandatory. Your shirt will still be beautiful without it. I find that it makes it easier to handle as well as hang nice. If you are using the lawn that we've recommended, then the needle to use, in my opinion, I've tried it, and that's the Microtex size 10. You want a nice fine needle because this is fine fabric. In other words, these are very fine threads that are compacted really tightly. And so you want a needle that will go through there without creating holes or causing puckering. And along with that, not wanting puckering, is a basic construction thread may also cause that puckering because it's too heavy for this lightweight fine fabric. So we recommend a fine thread. Coats is one that you can find. Just Google Dual Duty XP fine thread, and you'll find online suppliers that will be able to service you with thread for that project. So anyways, but you do need the fine thread. All right, other pieces you're going to need to cut is yoke. You're going to need 2 yokes. If your print is an obvious horizontal or vertical print, make sure you cut your yoke in the opposite direction of your shirt. So in other words, our shirt's going the length of the fabric, and we don't want the yoke to match up with the same print. We want to turn it sideways, particularly when it's stripes and plaids. It just has a more pleasing look. Okay, so you're going to need 2 yokes. Yes?
Selena, Janet is recommending the Coats fine weight thread, is what she has experience with and can recommend to you.
At 60 weight.
60 weight.
Okay. Your regular thread is 40 weight. So it's, it's slightly lighter weight, but it's still just as strong. Okay. So then we have to cut out 2 sleeves. And then we'll cut our back on the fold. So there'll be 1 back, 2 sleeves, 2 yokes. Another thing I want to draw your attention to, I guess I'll do it when I get over here. So we're going to come over here, and I'm going to talk about the first piece you should cut out. You should make sure that you have enough fabric for your entire project before you do this. But if you're going to match the center front of the print, then you want to cut one front out by itself first. So here's our left front. Move these out of the way. This is the left front. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to, if you're not used to our patterns, we have little, simple little notches that in this particular pattern, it's a line. It kind of looks like a T with a little bar. Here, show them this one. You can see it here better. So instead of cutting out a big triangle, all we do is come in with our little sharp, pointy scissors. These are our tailor points that we carry. And just clip in. Now, if this is a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I only want an 1/8 inch slit. And that's the case right here. Up here, I want a slit at the top of the fold line and the top of the center front line. And I want to do that at the very bottom at the hem too. These will come in very handy. So a little slit to mark where each one of those goes. And then you have an arm size slit. Now, well, actually, no, you don't. Somehow in this pattern, the front notch to put the sleeve into the arm side just didn't make it to the print shop. So what you want to do is measure up this line about 4 3/8 inch. Well, exactly 4 3/8 inch. Make a mark here, and then just, could you hand me that sleeve? Thanks. And then on the front of the sleeve, you're going to want to put that notch 4 3/8 inch from the edge here too. And you'll know where to put it because the back is marked. And the back is always a double notch for the arm side.
Let me show them that double notch.
It's right here. Okay. So we're going to clip those. There's also a place to clip a notch right here near the bottom because this is where the vent is going to be. We don't sew the seam all the way to the bottom of the shirt. There's a little vent that's left open there. So you want to clip that as well. Okay, now we want to prepare ourselves for being able to match this print. Remember to make sure that you have a two-way print or a one-way print. If you have a one-way print, that means it's all palm trees that are going in one direction. You want to make sure all your pieces are cut in that direction so that you don't have one front with the palm trees upside down. Okay, so make sure. In this case, I have a two-way print, so I'm kind of superstitious about it. So even if I know it's a two-way print, I still try to cut all the pieces going in one direction just in case I miss something. So, okay, so here's where we want this shirt to match. And if you've seen my recipe on cutting plaid shirts, you've seen the same thing with the plaid. We want to match the center front. So this second line, the solid line, is the center front. This is actually the fold line. So we'll skip the fold line right now, and we want to go to the center front. And again, we've made a slit at the top and a slit at the bottom. Then we're going to take our chalkener and a straight edge ruler and draw that line all the way down. Can you see that blue line really well enough? Okay, good. So we've made that line. All right, now that's going to be very helpful when we go to cut out the right front. Now we want to we want to mark the pocket. And this is a place where I use pins. So in the corner of where I'm going to mark the pocket, I'm going to slide any old pin. Doesn't matter because it's just going to be a placeholder for me. Then when I peel my pattern back, I am going to make a little L shape at each corner with my chalkener again. And then with the chalkener and a straight edge, I'm going to connect the two. So this is the line where my pocket's going to sit. The top of my pocket's going to be right here. All right.
All right, I want to interject for just a second on a technical issue. It sounds like, or it seems like we have a few new people here this week, and we know that sometimes people have issues with the sound. If you're having a hard time hearing our, Janet's gone, I'll show you something down here. Our unofficial IT director, Marlene, has put in the comments a great way to help with that sound issue. We do apologize. We've been over this many times, and for whatever reason, some people's computers are just not loving it. But everybody has had great success, and we really want to thank Marlene for sharing that tip with us. It is in the comments on how to increase the volume if you're having a problem with that. And Janet's back.
Okay, so now we know exactly where the top of our pocket is going to lay. We've got these marks. So that's when we take our pattern piece, and the top of the pocket would be right where this fold line is because this is our hem, so we would have folded that down. So I want to lay that fold line right on that blue line and then kind of center it because there's going to be seam allowance on either side. And then I'm not sure you can see, but what I've done is I've taken a ballpoint pen and I've probably, put a couple of weights on here so it stays in place. And then I'm going to draw around the motif of the pattern, of the print of the fabric, right where that pocket's going to sit. Okay, so we've got it centered over, so you can see here, we've left a 1/4 inch on either side for the seam allowance and set that on there. So now that I've drawn all the way around it, I take it over to my yardage and I try to find Well, I do find, but sometimes it's takes a few minutes. But what you do is you look for that same motif, and then you try to find, there we go. And you'll know the minute you hit it because it will just sort of like fall into place.
Now, I could see that on the video. Can you guys see what she's talking about, how she found it and matched it up? Give me a thumbs up or you're a little off.
I am? You mean here?
Yeah.
Well, I just slid it around, but okay, there you go.
All right. I mean, if that's not a great tip, I don't know what is.
This will be really easy to put on now because it's already going to match. You know it's going to match. And so then we'll just cut that piece out.
All right.
Okay. Now and again, the whole time, now once we've cut out that right front, we have no issues. I mean left front. Now that we're going to cut out the right front, once you find the matching spot, I just want you to take a quick look and make sure that you haven't like cut it right out of the center of the fabric and now you're not going to have enough room for the remaining pieces. But you do need to cut the right and left front out first in order to make sure that they match. Okay, so what I've done, now this could be confusing for a minute. I've folded it on the center front line. Remember, there's two lines here, a fold line and a center front line. We're only folding it on the center front line temporarily. That's so we can find the exact spot that center front is. And here it is. And you'll know when you hit it because it just kind of falls into place as if it was all one piece of fabric. And let me see down here. That one looks there.
Yeah, you got it.
There. Now, you see that? So now we want the other side.
While you're getting that, Selena is wondering, do you make multiple copies of the pocket so you could use different fabrics?
I do. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked that because, and don't ask me why I do this.
Because you're a hoarder.
It's kind of a souvenir, but who was it? Selena? Selena, look. These are all from different shirts I've made, and I've drawn around the patterns on each one. So yes, I have made quite a few different pockets. And I find the best way to do it is out of something you can really see through. And, you know, you're always cutting up tissue patterns, and there's always excess tissue. So I save some of the excess tissue sometimes, but if not, some white tracing paper. And this one actually made it through 2 or 3 motifs. So yes, I make several. You want a fresh one almost every time. Okay, so now we know where the center front line, and we know if we cut out our right front right on that line, here we go, that they're going to match. Absolutely going to match. Just remember, you cut out the left front with the pattern piece right side up. You cut out the right front by turning it upside down.
Can you show them where that matches up again? I didn't get in there quite fast enough, I don't think.
Here is the center front line. Here is the center front line. And that's where this is going to end up. Now what we're going to do is we're not going to cut it out right now. We're going to take this piece off. We're going to have it marked. We'll draw that straight line again. And then we'll lay the center front on that straight line. Pin it, put weights on it. Make sure I've got enough fabric to cut out the rest of my pieces before I do that, because I might want to change where I put it. But make sure that that line stays straight and that you put that center front, both ends of it, on that line. Put your weights down. Now you can cut out your right front. And now they'll match exactly down the front. Now on the back, in this particular print, I'm not even caring about trying to match the side seams. that would be, in my opinion, an exercise in futility, because it's not going to show on a print like this. Now, there are some prints, like the one that you made, Jess, where the fish go horizontally. The pattern is horizontal. In that case, or a stripe or a plaid, you might want to match up the sides. So if you have that kind of fabric and you want to match up the sides, after you cut your fronts out, and you go to cut out your back, here, let me pull this out of the way. So you've got your front cut, and you want to cut your back, you're going to lay this on the fabric and find the place for it to match, and then lay this next to it. Peel this away, pin this, or weight it down and cut it.
Just like you did with the front.
Now, I don't know, those of you who are A-type, I mean extra A-type personalities, you're going to want it to match exactly on the seam line. You go right ahead. It's a little more work and a little more time, but in some projects, it's well worth it. In this particular project, it's irrelevant, and I would not make myself that crazy to try and match up all these motifs on a side seam.
All right, so Linda has a good question. You said when you lay the fabric down, or lay the pattern piece down before you cut, when you get it all matched up, make sure you have enough for all your other pieces. What if you don't?
Well, then you didn't buy enough fabric. Here's the thing, where you have to print, those of you who understand print fabrics, there's a certain amount of repeat. And they might even tell you that it's 2 inches or 5 inches or 10 inches. In most cases, your repeat's going to be really short. And if the repeat's really short, you're going to be able to find plenty of room. Now, I cut mine out of a kit that was 3 yards, and I still have a nice, about a half a yard of fabric left. Almost a half a yard of fabric, I'd say, left. Even though I had to kind of fussy cut this to get everything to match.
I didn't have quite that much left, but I did have a decent amount left, and I had to match the sides.
Right.
So if you're using the pattern guide, you will have enough fabric. It's just more of a reminder, like don't put your pattern piece right in smack dab in the middle of your
you
fabric.
may have found the right place for the print to match, but maybe it's not the most efficient use of the fabric. So just take stock of that. And because you don't want to use the pattern guide layout to cut it unless you're cutting a solid, or unless you just don't care about matching the print, and that's okay with me. If it's okay with you, it's okay with me. We're just showing you the absolute, all the tips and techniques that you might want to use. There are prints that it would be not necessary to match. Maybe they're real small, all over prints. Maybe you say, hey, you know what, it's not worth it to match it. It's not going to make that big of a difference. But a really large Hawaiian print and it doesn't match in the front, it really does show. And it actually shows best if it's matched. Then you say, oh, wow, look how great that looks going across. So, but just remember, the thing that I don't want to confuse you with is the fact that we have folded this on the center front line. But now that we're done, once we put our interfacing on, we're going to press it on the fold line. So this is only temporary in order to get that to match. So keep that in mind. Now, one other thing that I didn't mention before when I was talking about interfacing, and I meant to, I'm going to come back over there, is many of you heard me talk about my stitch samples. So I took a generous piece of fabric that was left over, and I interfaced the whole thing, and then I press it in half. Now, when I want to test what color thread I want to use on here, what stitch length I want to use on here, I have the exact fabric that I'm going to use, and it has the interfacing that would be in the places like the collar where I'll be top stitching. So I'll be able to get a true representation of what the top stitching will look like on there. And then when we get to the end of the shirt and we get ready to do buttonholes, you always test your buttonholes before you put it in a garment, always. And so this will give me a chance to test my buttonholes. This is that dual duty fine thread. And I purchased a couple of different colors that I might want to use on here, and I'll test them with the stitch samples. So I'll put a little bit of each color on there and see which one I like best. But this...
Complete personal preference if you want something to blend in or stand out.
Right, right. And here is Dual Duty XP Fine. And if you're not buying Dual Duty, then just check for 60 weight. You want a nice, lightweight, strong thread so that it doesn't pucker your fabric. You'll know if you put in too heavy of a thread because your seams just won't lay flat. You know what, Jess? I had a couple of seams last night I wanted to show.
She's gone again.
I'm gone again, but I'm coming right back. Where was that?
Show you that thread again. You want to take a close look at it while she...
I had him here. Oh, here.
Here she comes.
So, if you're stitching with too thick a thread, this is what's going to happen to your seam. Now, in class, I've had students say, oh, that's okay, you can press that out. Well, if you press real hard and use a lot of steam and stretch the fabric, maybe. But then what have you done to your fabric? Plus, when you wash it, it's going to end up right back like this again. Or maybe even before. So you do not want puckered seams. This is done with a regular dual duty thread. Regular 40 weight thread. And that's what happened. So do your testing ahead of time with whatever fabric you're using. And that's why I love the stitch sample idea. Okay. I think we covered everything, Jess. The other thing is that before next week, what you need to do so you'll be right ready for the next episode.
Homework time.
Is to put your interfacing in here. Remember that was, where'd that piece go? It's probably over there. So we'll pretend like this is a piece of interfacing. And you're going to press your interfacing on the wrong side of your shirt front, just like that. Both collars and your pocket facing. Then you're going to press this on the fold line. So just go ahead and press it on the fold line and you'll be ready for the next installment of the sew along of the Islander shirt.
All right.
Any questions, Jess?
Selena is, again with the thread, is it poly or cotton?
It's poly. It's
Yeah.
poly core and poly spun. It's all 100% poly.
60 weight for the serger as well.
You just use serger thread for the serger. It's fine.
Any questions? Feel free.
Oh, one more thing. Press up your hems as well. Press up the hem on the pocket, but also press up the hems on the front, the back, both fronts, the back, and the sleeve. Get a nice pressed crease line after you put your interfacing in.
All right. I have a couple more questions coming in. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, we got the serger weight. All right. Peach says, I have been having trouble finding dual duty fine thread. It is my favorite. I'm wondering if it has been discontinued. Do you know who carries it?
Yes, I do know who carries it, and no, it has not been discontinued. I was disappointed in the fact that there isn't as large a selection, but I only looked at 2 sites. So there may be other sites that have a larger selection. And you can always go to coats.com, and there is a customer service aspect to that website that they might be able to help you. But what I did was, Peach, is just Google dual duty XP fine thread. And several sources came up. And I purchased some from a site called createforless.com. and they did not, they were out of black. I was disappointed in that, but they had 8 or 9 colors to choose from. But there were others on there as well. So, yeah, just Google it.
All right, and Sue wants to know, do you interface the hem at this time?
Yes, you want to do all your interfacing. So here's the way I like to sew, and I think you would enjoy it as well. When I'm going to do a project, if I'm going to do a project tomorrow, I'm going to cut, mark, and interface everything today, collect all my supplies, make sure I've got the thread, the color I want, the buttons, whatever. And I might even do my test sample today, my stitch sample. Then when I come in tomorrow, my project is already like somebody prepared a kit for me, and all I have to do is sew the pieces together. So interfacing the day ahead of time will help you a lot in that you want to let your interfacing cool once you've pressed it. A lot of people get orange peel or bubbles, and that's often attributed to not letting it cool. And so often we are ready to make the collar, so we go over, we put the interfacing on, and now we want to go sew. Where if we put the interfacing on a day ahead of time, you know it's cooled, you know it's cured, you know you've got a good seal on that. It's really cured well. And then pressing up these hems is just creating a nice line for that hem. We're not going to leave those up when we sew the pieces together, but we want that done ahead of time. It's part of my efficiency in sewing. When I created this pattern guide, it was long before I started doing the express patterns. So some of you have used some of my express patterns, which means I do everything that I possibly can at the sewing machine before I go to the iron, and as much at the iron before I go back to the sewing machine. So things are done slightly out of order. And chances are that's the way we'll be doing this sew along as well. We'll be doing it slightly out of order from the pattern guide. But I do invite you, particularly as we move along, I'll be giving you tips that aren't in the book, and I'll call those out. So maybe you want to make some notes in the margin to remind yourself. Or just rewind the video a few times. But, yeah.
Okay. It seems as though there was a little glitch in the video, and some people lost part of it.
Oh.
When we were talking about the thread. To clarify, we don't have a magic source for the thread. Janet Googled it. So you could reach out to Coats. They might have a location finder on their site. I'm not sure. I haven't looked. Or you can Google it, and that's where Janet found it. I can put the link to the website that she found it on in the comments when we're done here. If anybody missed anything else, I'll have to go back and look at the video and see what happened. We can address it at the beginning of next week as well, or send us an email, islandersewing@comcast.net, if you have a question about something that you need to get done for next week. Yeah. And we'll be happy to answer that for you.
And you still have plenty of time to order a kit today or tomorrow and have it in time for next week, so that you can be right up to speed with us. But these sew-alongs will stay indefinitely available on Facebook. So if it's a couple weeks from now before you can get to it, it'll be okay too. Just watch now and pick up what you can. But boy, these are great Christmas gifts, and this is a good time. We even had, oh no, I don't remember her name now. Oh, sorry. But we've already had one Islander shirt posted because she couldn't wait for the sew-along. She got so excited.
Yes.
So, but it's a Christmas gift for her hubby, and it's really well done. And she did it out of a plaid. So take a look in the posts.
Yes, and Patricia, Joanne's does carry Coats, but we're specifically talking about the 60 weight, which they don't seem to carry anymore.
Mine didn't have
and
it.
And Peach said the same thing, that she cleared them out when she saw they were getting rid of them.
Oh, okay.
But as far as
I'm glad she said that, because I could have sworn I bought it there before, and then when I went in, I'm like, why don't they have it? Okay.
All right. Okay. Selena, we are using Cotton Lawn. The Cotton Lawn that you buy from us will not shrink. We have tested it.
Well, it comes from the ready-to-wear industry and
Yes.
the high-end ready-to-wear. So it can't shrink because in a garment factory, they don't have time to wash, dry, and press 10,000 yards of fabric. So they make it appropriately. And, yeah.
Susan, sewing without pins and basting is the foundation of our system. So you can find that information in our videos and DVDs. Industrial Shortcuts 1 is where I would start with that at islandersewing.com.
You know, I think that video is still on our website from the webinar. If you go quick today and look at it, it's on the video page of our website. There's a webinar that I did. We're going to be taking that down this week, but it's all about the best of Islander sewing systems. So you'd really get a good view, a cross-section of what we have to offer.
Okay, Selena, I'm sorry I misunderstood the question. Do we still have linen on our site?
We have those 2 linens.
Okay,
left,
she's
yeah.
asking if that shrinks.
Yes.
Because she likes those better. Yeah, which is not a problem.
Yeah, the linen does shrink. I don't know of any linen that doesn't shrink. I've not come across a source for it.
Okay, again, I will reiterate if anybody missed any part of this video for the technical issue that I'm not sure what happened. It didn't show anything on our end. So we will address anything at the beginning of next week, or if you have a question that needs to be answered before then, please email us at islandersewing@comcast.net. And we will be back next week, Tuesday at 2 Eastern Time, and we will begin construction of the shirt, beginning with the collar and the pocket.
Yeah, I'll show you how to put that pocket on without any pins or basting, and how to get that curve. The pocket is curved on the bottom, and you get it looking exactly identical from one side to the other, and it's all done without any pins or basting. So that's pretty exciting right there.
It is. And then when you get it on, it'll match perfectly because you already learned how to do that.
Right. So, you've got your homework cut out for you. Get your fabric if you haven't got it already. Order your kit if you don't have one. Remember, lightweight interfacing only, even though the guide's going to tell you a firm for the upper collar. Get your Microtex 10 if you're sewing on lawn. And
you'll be ready.
Yeah, get your thread and you'll be ready.
All right. We will see you next week then. Can't wait to see what you have to say about how far you've gotten. All right. We will see you then. Have a great week.
Bye now.
Bye.